Most buyers are good people with good intentions. Yes, you're going to run into problems just like I did. So I'm going to tell you all about that on the other side. So without any further ado, let's go. Hello everyone. Welcome back to the channel. This is John from Flippin' Ain't Easy. And yeah, there's bad buyers out there, guys. I got to tell you, so many people post comments in my videos, just in my videos. Forget all the bulletin boards and all the other things, other places you can read about buyers. But just in my comments, people post their stories about a bad buyer here and a bad buyer there. And I am 100% certain that if you look at all of your transactions, that these bad buyers only represent a very small portion of the interactions that you're going to have on eBay. Yet people are constantly allowing it to make them crazy, make them want to quit. I know a lot of you out there agree with me, and there's going to be some people who disagree with me, but there's one thing I have to say, guys. When you're dealing with bad buyers and you get burned, you have to tally it up as the cost of doing business. I can tell you, if you are serious, if you're a serious sellers, and you know what, there's some people out there just kind of do this in piddle. That's not serious reselling. If you're a serious reseller, you do this almost every day, whether it's part-time or full-time, then you have to look back at your numbers and understand, I'm sure most of you will agree, that these bad experiences only chalk up a very small percentage of what you earn throughout the year. And what a lot of people don't realize is you can write these things off at the end of the year when you're doing your taxes. The eBay labels, or the labels you're shipping out to the customer, maybe the return labels that you're spending, the cost of goods, these are all things that you're able to write off. Now, I think the misconception is that people think that I bought this for $5 and I sold it for $100 and I got burned. Maybe the buyer sent you back a brick on a return and kept the item. Well, you're not out $100. You're out the thought, the hope of being able to complete the transaction for $100, but you're really only out of pocket $5, and you're only out of pocket the shipping. But eBay gives you tools that you can use to recoup that. So let's say they send you a brick. You're into that item for $5. You sold it to them for $100. They send you back a brick. Well, you can deduct 50% off the refund. So you're still making money. You're still making a profit. Maybe not as much as you were hoping for, and it's a disappointment. I'm sure with anything in life we can be disappointed, but we don't allow that to make us rethink why we're doing that task or that thing. We all are going to fail at some point in this business, and I'll give you an example. Okay, first of all, I take a lot of what you guys say to heart. So when we're talking about different interactions that I've had with buyers in the past, I'll remember, this particular person said this, they would handle it this way. Another person said they would handle it that way. I kind of file that all away. I'm not just set in my ways. And I've been trying to proactively be a little bit more, how do I say, maybe customer focused, in that it's more than just if a buyer has a complaint, open a return and we'll take it back from you. It's more of having a conversation and a dialogue with the buyer to maybe A, help them resolve their issues so that they don't have to return it, and B, try to explore the different options because returns aren't always necessarily the thing. Now, a case in point, I had this Tesla charging station box. It doesn't have the charger in it. It's just the station, the charging box with a cover that closes when you're not using your charger. And I think I paid $16 for it. And it was a really nice one, nice glass one, and a glass cover, and had like a digital lock on it on the side. And I tested everything out. I made sure that it not only opened, but closed, but locked, and all that stuff. And I listed it. It's open box, and everything was new in there, and I sold it for like $179 plus shipping. pretty good sale. And buyer got it, and they only had 9 feedback, which is not, it's not an alarming thing. It's not the greatest thing to have a buyer with 9 feedback, but it's not going to be the end of the day. For me, it's about the interaction with the buyer. So the buyer contacts me and says, hey, I have this issue with this, and they ended up opening up a return request. As soon as they sent me, I don't know what they're doing. They weren't expecting me to reply or what, but they went in and opened a return request as well. So as with any return request, I'm trying to resolve the issue to avoid a return. Of course, these items are big. Return labels are expensive. If it's a legitimate return, we just take the return. We eat the cost of the return label as the cost of doing business. And we contacted the buyer. The buyer said that they could not get this thing open. They had 2 other people try to help them, and they could not get this charging case open. And my thought was, well, maybe it got damaged in shipping or something like that. Even though we padded it up really good. Yet I could have, my options were to accept the return and just be done with it, or save the sale. It's $179, and I had a similar one that I think I paid about 20 bucks for. It wasn't as fancy, but it was the same exact type of box, same exact function, and it had a key lock instead of a digital lock. And so I sent him a message stating, hey, I have this listing. I have it up for sale right now. I think I had it up for sale for like 40 or 50 bucks cheaper. But I said to him, I said, look, I can offer to send this to you, and I'll send it with a return label, and you just return back the original one, okay? I was just trying to be out in front of it, good customer service, based on my conversation. And we had about maybe 3 or 4 messages back and forth about trying different things to get the first thing to work, and he was very quick to reply to me. So I felt good about my interaction with the buyer. I felt like this wasn't a scammer. I've dealt with a lot of scammers before. And scammers generally don't have conversations with you as a buyer. They just won't. When they contact you, it's usually just through the return request. And if you try to contact them, they ghost you. They don't even reply. This person was different. Very good mannerisms, very cordial, very polite. And you can tell many times through your conversations. I've had dozens upon dozens of conversations with buyers, and I can tell a good buyer from a bad buyer. Well, at least I thought. So I sent them this other charging box. They were fine with it. They said, look, they just need something for their charger. And I sent them the item, provided them with the tracking number. Did not hear a thank you or anything. That kind of was like, well, okay, I guess. 10 days have now passed, and I went to check. The replacement arrived, but no return message from the buyer. They didn't even return the item, the original item, which is what the return label I included was for. So I reached out to the buyer and I said, hey, I noticed that you received the replacement about 10 days ago, and I see that there's no tracking activity on the original to return back to me. Can you please return this back using that return label? And of course, now they're starting to ghost me. And it's maybe I just didn't read the situation correctly, and I could say to you that, you know what, I am out money, and I think maybe 20 bucks for the original item. That's the cost of goods. But I'm going to be able to write that off at the end of the day. Would I, and it's a missing opportunity to make like $100 and some odd off that $20 item. That sucks. But sometimes you have to have trust in the people you are working with and feel out the situation. 95% of the time, you're going to be, if you're dealing with a buyer who's willing to interact with you, they're going to be true to their word, and they're not going to burn you, okay? 5% of the time, that's kind of an approximate. I know a lot of you will say it's higher than that, but it ain't. About 5% of the time, and that's really high, people are going to burn you, okay? And it may not be that this person was trying to burn me. It may be that they got the item, they installed the item, and this thing's just sitting on their counter. They're not a seller, at least with this particular account. So my assumption is it's just sitting in their garage. They haven't bothered to return it. My hope is that this message I sent them is a reminder that they are going to send it back. So it may not be a loss entirely. And once I get that back, I'll have to try to figure out what's going on with it. If this is a legitimate buyer and they just weren't trying to burn me. I mean, it's a heck of a strategy to try to burn someone this way. I mean, most people just simply, they lie or whatever. And I guess in that they were telling me they'd send it back, and they didn't do it. I guess you can count that as a lie, or maybe it's just an oversight. But I'm not going to lose sleep over this. I'm not going to say, you know what, all buyers are bad buyers, and I'm not going to do this anymore. Would I consider doing something like this in the future? I will, but I'm going to remember this moment as a learning experience. I'm going to file this away and maybe consider a few things. Number one, what's the value of the item? How much am I into this for? Forget how much I sold it for, because again, I may sell an item for $1,000, but if I'm only into it for 20, then at the end of the day, I've only lost 20. That money is not yours. Let's put it this way, and people will argue with me about this. That money isn't yours until it is beyond the 30-day return window. And even then, a buyer can open up a chargeback within the 90-day period after they buy this from you. Okay, so even then, after 30 days, you can decline a return request, but you still have the potential to fight a chargeback. Okay, so none of this money that you're earning on eBay is really yours. It may seem like it's yours. It may be sent to your checking account, but I promise you, the moment someone opens up a chargeback, eBay is going to take every cent of it out of your account until there's a resolution from the bank. That's a promise to you, okay? And I think that's the thing that makes people upset a lot about eBay, and they make people think that eBay is doing us sellers dirty. But when it comes to chargebacks, eBay has to collect that money from you because the credit cards have already taken that money from them. So it's recouping the money that was sent to you in the first place. So I'm only out 20 bucks. I've gone to the casino many times and put a $20 bill in a slot machine and won nothing, and walked away and just shrugged it off. The difference is I won't be able to write that off against my business, whereas I can write that cost of goods at the end of the year against my cost of goods, against my sales for the entire year. It's disappointing. Yeah, it is disappointing. But sometimes, I think sometimes, we have to take some chances in this business. It could be worse, guys. I've had chargebacks where I've potentially would have lost a $1,200 sale on a $50 item. Again, you're not losing the sale, you're losing the cost of goods whenever you get burned. And if you start looking at things differently, and instead of what you've lost in the sale, and start looking at it as what you've lost in your initial investment, that's the out-of-pocket expenses, cost of goods, return labels, that type of thing, then the sting won't sting as bad. Yes, you're going to be disappointed, but it's one thing to say, hey, I lost $1,000 on eBay, but the truth is you only really lost the $50 you put into that cost of goods plus whatever shipping label. So that's my experience. Guess what, guys? It's going to continue to happen to all of us. Unless, you just follow strict rules and you're not willing to work with buyers. But I'm not there yet. I'm not going to let this one experience ruin the idea that the other 95% of the people are going to be honest and willing to work with me and willing to maybe, take a different item as an exchange. And you know what? I'm just going to continue trying to work with people. I think that's the best way to do it. Great customer service. At the end of the day, your buyer will be more inclined to leave you good feedback because you were willing to try things and try to work with them. And for me and my business, we're just going to keep grinding. We're going to keep churning these products, and I'm not going to let one bad buyer ruin that experience for me, because the sales, if you look at the entire year and compare it to this one or two bad transaction that you may have had, it ain't that bad, guys. The big picture is what you need to be focused on, and stop focusing on one bad transaction or one or two bad buyers. So I want to know what you think down below. If you had an experience like mine, where you tried to work with a buyer and you ended up getting burned, I think we all have stories where we have just bad buyers who send you back something different, or something bad condition, that type of thing. It's all disappointing, but I think sometimes we tend to remember the bad transactions and we forget about all the good positive transactions that way overshadow the negative transactions. So do me a favor, hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. Consider subscribing to the channel. I'd certainly appreciate that. And of course, hit the notification bell. So if you want to check out our live streams, want to be notified when we make a new video, then that'll happen when you hit the notification bell. So bad buyers, guys, it's going to happen. It's going to happen to the best of us. I'm not saying I'm the best of us, but I'm just one example of how someone can get burned in this business. But I'm going to keep focused. But how you deal with it is yet another example of how flipping ain't easy. And I want you guys to have an excellent rest of your week. Actually, have a great weekend. But check out the live at 3 p.m. today, Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern. And until then, have a great rest of your day.